Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we wish you a very good afternoon and welcome to the best damn birthday party you've ever seen in the state of Connecticut. We are celebrating this weekend the joint birthdays of Pratt and Whitney at the age of 60 and still going strong, and the sovereign state of Connecticut at 350 years. And what a show we've got for you today. We have brought the very finest in airshow pilots, performers from all around the countryside. And we know you're going to enjoy what you watch here this afternoon.
The airplane fell on the old guy. There you go, Jim. Drag him out. There you go. Oh, boy. All right. Now he's holding it like that. He wants to do an inverted flat spin. I want to see he's positioning himself for it right now. There he goes. Power's coming back. Now the airplane slowed up. There you go. Listen to the anti-gravity. members of the Kalamazoo Aviation History Museum, Canadian Warplane Heritage, and with the cooperation of the United States Navy, and proudly presented by Pratt & Whitney. These aircraft fly today as a tribute to the brave Americans and Canadians, not only who maintained and flew them, but also those who designed and built them. Before you, the Grumman, Pratt & Whitney, Cat Flight, celebrating 60 years of Pratt & Whitney excellence.
Well, after I'd introduced each of the Grumman, Pratt & Whitney cats, and the formation was flying towards us to the Navy hymn, I could feel the emotion from the people there. It was so strong, it was like something you could reach out and touch. And when you look at that moment and you think that of the hundreds of thousands of people that were there watching the show, that thousands of them probably worked on the round engines that powered the World War II, Korean War era aircraft, and that thousands of others of them probably worked on the TF-30 P-412As that are powering that beautiful Grumman Tomcat. We're talking not only of the history of Pratt & Whitney, talking of the history of Grumman, and that's 45 or so years of the history of naval aviation, all before you. It was a beautiful moment, truly beautiful, and it was a moment of personal satisfaction for me. I'd been working on the idea of an air show since 1983, the feasibility study of the site, and here it was, 1985, and this was the culmination of everything, of all the hard work that everybody at Pratt & Whitney had put into it. I had the easy part, see, I just had to produce the flying show, but the folks at Pratt & Whitney within the company that spent the better part of a year actually putting together the total show, that the static displays and everything that goes along with the air show. They wanted something special for their 60th anniversary. And I think it was at the moment the cat flight was going over that I said, well, they got it. I mean, here we are, all standing on the reviewing platform and watching this, the fulfillment of all our expectations for a great show. And there were a lot of teary-eyed people in that audience. And I'm standing up on this reviewing stance, everybody can see me, and I got tears rolling down my cheeks, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Looking back at the whole lineup of air show performances, I think we can say proudly that there were no filler acts. Everybody was a headliner. Everybody was an opener. Everybody was a closer. Everybody was a feature. And we had our surprises. I think probably the biggest surprise was the change in the weather between Saturday and Sunday. Saturday couldn't have been any nicer. Perfect air show weather. Blue skies, light winds, clear. Sunday, right on the deck. Even with the weather being down on Sunday, we could still fly at 3:30 in the afternoon. The weather cleared enough. And having all that moisture in the air gave us a little added benefit. We flew the F-14A Tomcat demo, and the extra moisture in the air made the demo that much more spectacular. Watching that big, heavy, fast airplane squeezing the moisture out of the air definitely adds to the goosebump factor.
Come by out the wings in the 68-degree position, go to full afterburner again, and then execute a 360-degree turn, which G levels between 6 and 7 Gs for the next pass. The next pass simulates the high-speed performance of the airplane, particularly when we're fighting the airplane at altitude, how the airplane turns with the wings aft. aft position is a delta wing configuration, so the airplane is very efficient in the supersonic regime. One of the more impressive maneuvers in the demonstration is the airplane's maneuverability in the moderate speed regime. 350 to 400 knots is where we normally fight the airplane. When we're out doing normal ACM and dogfighting, we don't fly supersonic all the time. In fact, rather infrequently do we go supersonic. Most of the time we're in the 400 knot regime where the airplane maneuvers the best. So when I come in on that pass, I'm going approximately 350 to 360 knots. Just as I get to the crowd, I select the zone 5 again in the afterburners, full power, and then commence a very tight high G turn. When I have the wings forward, the turn radius of the airplane is at least half of what it was with the wings aft, because the airplane is very maneuverable with a straight wing airplane and wings forward. And we come screaming around the corner on that one. G loadings are very high, 6 to 7 sustained all the way around. And from the pilot standpoint, it's the same as the other one. I'm just looking for the crowd in the show line, and the RO is watching the airspeeds and the altitude.
But Saturday, what a beautiful day. Couldn't have been any better for an air show. We had the act scheduled to start at 12:30, and people were coming in the gate at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, you can't just have them standing around for 4.5 hours. So we were ready for them. The hangar exhibit was the answer to an aviation buff's dream. 60 years of Pratt and Whitney engines, and that goes back to the Wasp and the R2800 right up to what we're turning out in the plant today, the F100, the PW4000, and everything in between. It was truly an historic display. And then we had the Wright brothers' personal collection of photographs. This is a pictorial record of the beginning of powered flight. We had an engine that Orville and Wilbur actually built on display, one that I thought was a model or something that somebody turned out as a replica, but I was assured that this was an engine that Orville and Wilbur had actually worked on. Outside, we had one of the largest static displays that I've ever seen at an air show in North America. You talk about aviation history, the aviation buffs, whatever era they were interested in, whatever aspect of aviation they were interested in, we had something for them. There were over 75 Pratt & Whitney powered aircraft flown in just for the static display. As a matter of fact, one of the airplanes that was on the deck was flown in from Las Vegas, Nevada. It was a Ford Trimotor, and this is powered by 3 Junior Wasps. And I understand they were the original engines. Wonder how many rebuilds they've been through. But they're still cooking on an airplane that's, well, more than 55 years old. And these static displays were available for people to go up and look at. Some of the airplanes were opened up. The commercial airliners, the C-141, you could walk right through it. And they did, all day. Then when you got tired of walking around, you could sit down and rest your feet in a theater they put together specially for the air show and watch the latest Thunderbirds film. Thunderbirds flying their F-16 Fighting Falcons. at 12:30 sharp, Bill Fitzsimmons stepped off the wing of the Stearman biplane at 4,000 feet, free fell for about 1,500 feet, and then opened his canopy, which has the American flag emblazoned inside the canopy. And under canopy, he flies down to the ground, and when he's in position, we have the Air Force Band play the national anthem. Now this says, friends, this is the start of something big. Now, Ron Shelley's been circling Bill Fitzsimmons as he's flying the flag down to the ground, and since Ron's already up in his Stearman, we have him do a warm-up to actually open the show and show us what some of these maneuvers are going to look like.
Theme history. We come flying out of the pages of American aviation history. We're not really inventing anything new out there. We might throw in a few new wrinkles, but most everything has been done before by the old-timers, and it was the old-timers, the barnstormers, that started the air show. The barnstormers are mustered-out military pilots from World War I who bought a lot of the surplus aircraft that would be had for a song, and not wanting to go back to whatever they were doing before the war and having experienced the exhilaration of flight, these people started touring the country giving or selling rides, airplane rides, and there were so many of them that after a time people became blasé about seeing an airplane out in the farmer's field, and these chaps had to team up and put on stunts to attract folks out to sell them rides, and that was the birth of the air show.
When people think of air shows, they think of biplanes and noise and smoke and color, and Ron Shelley's biplane with that big 450 horsepower Pratt & Whitney engine really fills the bill. It's not a snappy airplane, it's a big, lumbering, former military trainer, but it does everything you want at the beginning of an air show to do. The main thing is attract attention, and it sure does that.
Right now, if you look out to the right side, John Lilberg is flying a Pitt Special, the airplane that's called the Rolls-Royce of aerobatic airplanes. John Lilberg, the J-58 program manager down in West Palm Beach. He says he's getting windburn here.
John Lilberg was the act immediately following Ron Shelley for a very good reason. I wanted, after Ron's act, which tends to be slow, and I used the term lumbering before, and it really is big, heavy biplane. I wanted something that would go like a bat and just snap through the maneuvers. John Lilberg is a competition pilot. One of the things he does best are very precise, fast maneuvers. So that's our comparison from our opening act to our second act.
Well, aerobatics to me provides a tremendous sense of satisfaction of doing something difficult extremely well. In flying competition or air shows or practice for that matter, it gets the adrenaline flowing at a pretty high rate, and it's total concentration to doing one thing. There's flying the airplane through an intricate path through the sky under very precise conditions. There's absolutely no time to think of other things, to daydream. You're in a situation of total concentration, flying the airplane, performing the maneuvers in sequence with zero error.
No, not going to do it yet. There was a snap on the way up and rotating it around to the left. He's just a positioning maneuver. Turning around, the airplane continues to turn around to the left side, and then back down on the that's the tail slide. There's that whip, and the nose comes down. Look at all that smoke. Back in the power, let the airplane fly again. Come up in the power once again. And
as you watch them come by in their first pass of the afternoon. The Six of Diamonds get their name from the T-6 aircraft they fly and their diamond signature formation.
The Six of Diamonds are former military pilots. Two of them are airline pilots, two of them are businessmen. They all have great experience in flying formation. Their act is a Warbirds act, which brings in not only the Warbirds, but formation flying, and also some very good aerobatic flying. The reason we have them where we did in the show was that we wanted something that is going to immediately say military flying, because let's face it, Pratt & Whitney's been known to power military airplanes for a long time, and this is where we figured it was a good place to remind everybody.
From the left, our Six of Diamonds come back into the demonstration area as they're going to do something you usually see in the movies. This is the beginning of the fighter pass. This is what you sometimes hear them call a peel off. That is where they will ripple break from that and come back across the field in a strafing run.
This man continues to roll up, and there they go, looking across the ground. And if you listen carefully, you can hear the machine gun fire coming from the number 2 airplane. Hey, number 3 looks pretty happy. He's got to do a look at that all the way around. Number 2, number 1, everybody's real happy. Look at that. Victory rolls as they continue.
Watch now from the far right side as Captain Bill Dodds performs the roll around the formation. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to the wind whistle through the wings on this thing. You talk about silent flight. I do want you to hear how beautiful it is. Listen. Listen to the wind.
Dennis Galati's act was different from any other act we had in the air show. Absolutely quiet. We talk about the beauty of silent flight. And when you take an LS-4 sailplane up with Dennis Galati at the controls and let him just let that airplane wheel through the air and roll and loop and soar, that's the romance of flight, and that's why we put it where we did.
My glider is really designed for racing, and I don't try to do the things that you'll see in the power planes. What I'm trying to do in the routine is to make it graceful and beautiful and something that matches the music and is aesthetically pleasing as opposed to aerobatically correct or technically correct. Probably from a danger point of view, the only dangerous part of the routine is the loops that are done low to the ground. So you have to be a little careful when you're coming down the backside of a loop heading towards the ground, and this goes for any plane that you'll see doing that maneuver. There's a point well above the ground at which you have to be in the right position or you will not be able to get through the bottom. And the fuselage wants to keep going to the ground, and only the wings are holding it up, so the wings want to bend, and so you see a very dramatic bend in the glider.
The super slow roll from Rockwell International in Los Angeles, California. The incomparable Robert A. Bob Hoover flying the P-51D Mustang.
Bob Hoover is the pilot's pilot. And I'm glad that Jim Driscoll always announces Bob Hoover's show, because then I can sit there and enjoy what Bob's doing without having to worry about saying something about it.
Bob of course, a veteran of 59 combat missions during World War II, having been shot down on his 59th mission, escorting 2 wounded wingmen home. As Bob and these wounded wingmen were jumped, he engaged the enemy. His wounded wingman got home, but Bob, as you know the story goes, was shot down over the Mediterranean. Of course, after he was shot down, he was a prisoner of war for about 15 months.
International is a historical act in that their act is packaged to help people understand what air power was like when the United States became involved in World War II in the Pacific. The Wildcat was the first Navy mono-wing fighter, and the 2 Japanese airplanes were similar to those that led the attack on Pearl Harbor. So this is a little compact piece of history that many people may not fully understand, but now they can see where we were back in 1941.
Ladies and gentlemen, flying the FM-2, the leader of Warplanes International, Dick Foote. Flying the 0, Tom Rudder, and flying the Kate is Bill Simmons. Warplanes International.
Dreams of flying in one form or another, and when you get up there and you jump out of that plane or you just step off the strut, it's the complete feeling of flying. There's nothing around you, and it's totally awesome. It's like picturing yourself as a bird, and your hands are your wings and your feet are your rudders, and you just, when it's time to pull, your adrenaline's going because you know it's second stage. It's kind of like a rocket. You have your first stage of flying through the air and doing your maneuvers, and the second stage, when that parachute opens, it's another stage and another whole experience.
Well, most people think that they have this impression that leaving the plane is like a roller coaster ride, that it's tough in the stomach, there's a lot of acceleration, but it's very smooth. And as you get used to it, it just feels like you're diving into water, or that you're floating. And after about 10 seconds, you reach terminal velocity, and everyone else is falling about the same speed you are. So there's nothing to really judge your speed from. You have your altimeter to tell you how high you are and when it's time to pull. Other than that, you really feel like you're floating on a cushion of air, and you learn to control your body, and you feel like you have some control of yourself. And it's very smooth feeling. It's not, except opening can be a little rough sometimes, but it never really hurts.
vehicles and actually went up 800 feet at one time and 300 feet at another. And while I was up there, I did have the time, obviously, to look around, and I just thought it was so great that that many people from Pratt would show up for an air show. Oh, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And to get an eye view from being up that high of that many people participating in an air show, all for the benefit of Pratt, I think was great. Just great.
It was the largest air show that I had ever been involved in. The emotional part of it was just phenomenal to me. I mean, I just found myself standing there even on the ground during some of the aerial acrobatics, you know, and I just stand there almost with tears in my eyes because I'm standing there beside men that have built these engines. You know, a lot of them had retired, and they were standing there thinking, yeah, I might have been the man that put that engine together that's flying that airplane. You know, and then the Tomcat flew over and did that maneuver, and we're just standing there with goosebumps all over us, you know, and knowing, you know, I really felt like I was a part of this company and a part of the team, probably more than I ever had before. That's kind of what I think Team Eagle stands for. We're all Team Eagles.
And while Jim is taxiing in, we're getting ready for Ed Johnson in the world's smallest jet.
Ed Johnson and Ron Henning are two airline pilots who fly one at a time the BD-5J, the world's smallest jet. Ed Johnson flew it in the show at Pratt and Whitney. The airplane's about the size of a Volkswagen Rabbit and powered by an itty-bitty turbine about the size of a Singer sewing machine. And this airplane will go about 350 miles an hour. Ed Johnson's philosophy is people come to see a jet airplane. Jet airplanes go fast, so he does his whole show with the throttle wide open.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if he's going to do a tail slide, Eddie, you want to talk to us while you're doing this?
It looks like we got just a beautiful day up here. And I'll be setting up there coming in at over 350 miles an hour entering the tail slide. And as Frank Pratt told you, this is the only jet in an air show doing a tail slide. Starting my running now. Holding about a 40-degree dive angle. Passing through 300, 340. Looking right at 350 back with a stick. Coming in with about 6.5 positive G's. Looking for a vertical line. This is kind of tough sometimes when your feet are level with your eyes in this airplane. Throttle's coming back, idle. Line. I'll tell you, that gets me every time. Okay, rolling out. Power's coming back up. Oil pressure's coming up. Faster 200, 250. Coming up to 300. Coming back on the stick.
Okay, Eddie, nice job. You think he's having a good time today?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, they're in right echelon, and if you look high to the right side, as the smoke comes on, it gives Pratt and Whitney great pleasure to introduce and present the French Connection Air Show.
The mountains illuminated and gaued with exaltation. The sky seems endless, above, beyond, and below. The earth dances as we soar towards it. Immortal men, that's who we are. We have the wings of a girl, the hopes of the poor man, the goals of a god. We form wing to wing, becoming one mind, anticipating each other's moves. A feeling of so much closeness, a bound, strong as the universe. I am actually floating. The person behind me is just as high. I am so happy. No other time could be so perfect. If this moment lives forever, I will live forever. This poem was was written by Michelle Chaudwin for her parents, Jim and Jody.
The French Connection is a civilian formation act unlike any other formation act in the country. They do an act that's like an aerial ballet. They work to their own music. Montaigne does part of the narration. And it's like watching a prima ballerina. It's using all the dimensions you can use in the air, but differently from anybody else in the air show.
With the aircraft you use, you know, we have very quiet aircraft, we have graceful aircraft. And speaking about graceful aircraft, that's one of the reasons also we decided to put a routine in music. It's no noisy aircraft, you know. You need something to add for the people can watch a ballet in the sky and listen something at the same time, like music. That's what we decided to put the choreography too.
Also, Daniel has done a lot of competition, and I've done some, but he's done much more than me, and he's been a judge in competition. And he has probably a good appreciation of how it looks from the ground. And the fact of knowing how to do the maneuver very precisely, where sometimes in competition you put one maneuver after the other, although it's very precise and very proficient, it's a little boring. And he says add up to that precision is add up the holiday on ice compared to the regular competition of ice skating.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us join Montaigne Mallet live in the cockpit for this special salute.
And ladies and gentlemen, we would like to dedicate the French Connection furtherly to all the people of Pratt and Whitney. Happy anniversary. We're very happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
There he goes, getting back in the airplane, and he's, what? Sure, Jim Parker's taking off with me. No, Jim Parker's standing there. Jim, you lost another one. Jim! For shame. Somewhere now, I don't know quite where he's over there. See, I don't see anything, I don't hear anything. It makes me real nervous when that happens. I am, oh, wait a minute, there he comes back again. I'm glad you didn't take him for riding a Saberliner. No, wait, no, he pulled back on the stick, he got the airplane over onto its back, nose is down, well, at least he's keeping the thing flying. Wait a minute, he got a hold of that stick, he must give it a heck of a yank. I really wish he would do that.
Bob Weymouth is a farmer from Dresden, Maine. He's now retired, and I've been working with him since about 1978. And the man is genuinely funny. He doesn't have to be in an airplane. He just stands there, and he's funny. And when he comes onto the airport to do the warm-up for the Flying Farmer Act, he looks like a guy that just fell off the turnip truck. And he's just fun to work with and funny to watch.
Wait a minute. What's that sticking up out of the top of the airplane, George? George, what's sticking up off of... That's his head. That's his head. He's got his head out through the wing of the airplane.
And he's going straight up in the torque roll, letting the torque of the engine actually shove the airplane around. He continues with the nose straight up. The airplane continues to turn like a great big corkscrew in the sky, standing absolutely still. Well, now it backs up, tail slide. There's the whip stall. Nose comes down, powers up once again, and he's flying. He accelerates again through 50, 60, 70, 100, 120, 130 miles an hour as he takes it out to the left side.
2 16-foot poles, 40 feet apart. So between those 2 16-foot poles are 2 ribbons. There's one ribbon at the top, the 16-foot mark. You're going to cut the bottom ribbon on the tail of the airplane. Watch it. Holy moly, missed the top and cut the bottom upside.
Those that saw it saw the airplane passing over the ground at 16 feet upside down. And I'm concentrating on keeping asphalt off the top wing and so forth, but staying level and flying through that bottom ribbon. It's a little like flying through a highway overpass upside down. The dimensions are about the same. And cutting that ribbon, we're going through about 140. So about the last 200 feet is pretty busy, staying lined up and clearing the top ribbon. I don't know if it's clear to everyone that saw the act at the show this year, but the bottom ribbon is located at 16 feet above the runway, and the top ribbon is 5 feet above it. So I have to hit that bottom ribbon just right to avoid taking the top ribbon with me when I go through with the landing gear.
Swinging it right down the ground level, and we'll see if he really wants to do it. Is he slowing it down? Does he want to land? I don't know. Let's watch him. He says, no, I think he's got, here's the 1/2 roll. There's all the way around, 1.5 times around with 1/4 of a mile left to go. Jim Parker taking a look at the top ribbon, only 16 feet above the ground. The airplane at 160 miles an hour now, making that power correction, making that altitude correction. Jim Parker, watch him. Chuck Weiss, how'd you like that? Chuck says, I'm on the phone. Hold it. There's a half cube late to bring him back into the demonstration area. He just wants to make sure he got the ribbon. You got it, Jim boy. There you go. Series of highways. Everyone here having a happy birthday party for Pratt with the 60th anniversary.
Jim Parker flies one of the fastest, most violent acts I think it'd be possible to do in a pit special. One of his pets is a maneuver called a Lamshavak, in which the airplane tumbles wing over wing, nose over tail, totally out of control until suddenly it's flying again. And I worked with Jim every year since 1978, and I still sometimes find myself at a loss for words, just watching, I'm trying to figure out a way to describe what he's doing.
The maneuver called the Lamshavak, in which the airplane will appear to tumble wing over wing, nose over tail, completely out of control. As he gets the airplane gone up into position, he'll roll it into knife-edge flight, start the outside snap. Now let's watch this. Take a picture, will you? Anytime you'd like. The airplane corkscrews through the air, wing over wing, nose over tail, totally out of control, lying on its back, standing still, nose comes down, power comes back. Jim lets the airplane start to fly again, and how does he do it? How does he do it?
Once more from Los Angeles, California and Rockwell International, Robert A. Bob Hoover, this time flying the Shrike Commander.
He does things with the airplanes that he flies that, pilot or not, you stand there and shake your head. The Shrike Commander is a 6-seat or 6-place executive airplane, not meant to be flown upside down to 200 feet, not meant to be flown with both engines shut off. It was never designed as a glider.
Let's listen. Both engines running full. Both engines are off. Very quiet now inside the Shrike Commander, very quiet. And to my left, just a little wind friction noise you hear. Both propellers absolutely dead still. Very quiet inside the Shrike. Here's the insider barnstormer's loop. Remember, both engines are shut off. Now he'll kind of fudge a tad on this loop because he'll keep that nose pointed down and make sure he has enough for his 8-point roll. If he doesn't, he's got to come right for the airport. Nose coming up. Wave must 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So far as energy management's concerned, he did well in the maneuvers, but you can see he's rapidly running out of energy. And inside our barnstormer's loop, 8-point roll, 180-degree turn, land and taxi. He's got to look for his hat. Coming out. Let's bring him out of the cockpit, ladies and gentlemen, from Los Angeles, California, Bob Hoover. Bob Hoover.
Puts the other leg over, and he's standing on that left wing. This is what they call a wing walking form, my friend. Watch him as Bill Fitzsimmons works his way out to the end strut.
To me, it's an adventure. Most of it's just a lot of fun. It's like riding a roller coaster at the amusement park. Now the next stunt is our big. This is our big stunt, which Ron has named the Bill Fitz inverted wing sits. If I ever fall off the airplane, by the way, he's either going to have to hire somebody else named Bill or think up a new name for it. But at any rate, he climbs to about 1,000 feet, I guess. And I'm in the same position. And as he approaches the end of the runway, he's turning into the crowd line. He'll nod his head to me, and that's my signal to hang down by my feet again. Except this time, instead of letting my hands go down, I sort of tuck up into a fetal position because I know what's coming. This stunt, Ron will dive for airspeed and get up to maybe 150 miles an hour. That's what he tells me. It feels like 250 miles an hour. And then he does a half roll, which leaves me sitting upright on the end of the wing. That's the Bill Fitz inverted wing sits. And he can hold that inverted for the length of the crowd line.
The Bill Fitz inverted wing sits. Holy cow, how does he do it? You want to take a picture of something strange? There you go. There's the Bill Fitzsimmons hang dangle. Bill says that's enough. It's cold out here. Turning the airplane around to the right side. Now we're going to come back for a photographic pass, and if you'd like to take a picture of this.
A remark that I hear a lot from people at air shows is that they ask me why I do such a crazy thing. You know, it's dangerous, obviously, and I think it's helpful at an air show for people to remember risk-taking is a part of life, and especially in this day of 55-mile-an-hour speed limits and seat belts and airbags. You can have all that, and that's fine, but there are still risks in life, not just flying risks, but in business or in politics, in any field you can think of. Human progress is made by taking risks. And so to me, the air show is like a celebration of this spirit of risk-taking and adventure. And for that reason, it has value to me over and above just entertainment.
Ladies and gentlemen, our barnstormers from Virginia, Ron Shelley flying the airplane, and Bill Fitzsimmons, our wing walker. From the right, that's 650 miles per hour, the F-14 Tomcat, and those beautiful planes, they're doing their job. F-14A Tomcat. It is the ability to outturn and outgun your opponent that often determines the victor in air combat.
II is a movie to a lot of people. It's pages in a history book or photographs. The history of naval air power and World War II were really brought alive at the 60th anniversary air show. We have airplanes that flew us into World War II, flew us through it, flew us out of it, and we have examples of airplanes that are protecting us now. When we put together the finale of the Warbird segment, we wanted to point out that the Navy, Grumman, and Pratt & Whitney have protected us and flown us through years and years of history. And this was our way of building it all to a climax.
Recognized a personal dream of my own in putting this Grumman Cat formation together. It was not until 1985 in June at the Michigan International Air Show that the Tiger Cat restoration of the Kalamazoo Aviation History Museum was complete, and we were able to put together the Grumman Cat formation. I have to confess, however, that particularly the first time this was done, being a patriotic person myself, my heart was pounding and I could hear the Navy hymn in the background, and I felt quite honored to be in the position that I was for the first time ever to have all these aircraft flying at one time in the same formation. It's a very moving thing for me as well. I only wish I could have seen it from the ground.
Well, I've always been very interested in flying. My father flew in World War II. In fact, he's a test pilot and works for Grumman right now, so I'm intimately familiar with the performance of all those airplanes, and always had, when I was a little kid, I always had models of them. And so from that aspect, yes, I've always been very intrigued with them. And having a very, probably, possibly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rendezvous and fly in a formation with all of them together was a unique privilege.
Everybody watching the Cat formation and those flying it felt privileged to be there. The whole day was building to this moment. And now, just as everyone thought we were at the high point of the show, we didn't let go. The Cat formation may have been the grand finale of the air show, but the emotional climax was still to come. When the F-14 pulled out of that formation and the World War II Grumman, Pratt & Whitney Cats flew the traditional salute to fallen comrades in arms, the missing man formation.
Thank you.